Oh, hello there. I'm Bilchan.
I'm Nimikung.
I'm Banchan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you. Chapter 8, Section 1 of Jane Eyre, an Autobiography.
As.
Ah.
Jane Eyre, an Autobiography. Charlotte Brontë. Chapter 8, Section 1. The half hour ended. 5 o'clock struck. School was dismissed, and all were gone into the refectory to tea. I now ventured to descend. It was deep dusk. I retired into a corner and sat down on the floor. The spell by which I had been so far supported began to dissolve. Reaction took place, and soon, so overwhelming was the grief that seized me, I sank prostrate with my face to the ground. Now I wept. Helen Burns was not here. Nothing sustained me. Left to myself, I abandoned myself, and my tears watered the boards. I had meant to be so good, and to do so much at Aloud, to make so many friends, to earn respect and win affection. Already I had made visible progress. That very morning I had reached the head of my class. Miss Miller had praised me warmly. Miss Jumple had smiled approbation. She had promised to teach me drawing, and to let me learn French, if I continued to make similar improvement 2 months longer. And then I was well received by my fellow pupils, treated as an equal by those of my own age, and not molested by any. And here I lay again, crushed and trodden on. And could I ever rise more? Never, I thought. And ardently I wished to die. While sobbing out this wish in broken accents, someone approached. I started up again. Helen Burns was near me. The fading fires just showed her coming up the lawn. Vacant room. She brought my coffee and bread. Can eat something, she said. But I put both away from me. Condition. Helen regarded me, probably with surprise. I could not now abate my agitation, though I tried hard. I continued to weep aloud. She sat down on the ground near me, embraced her knees with her arms, and rested her head upon them. In that attitude she remained silent as an Indian. I was the first who spoke. Helen. Everybody. Jane. Oil. There are only 80 people who have heard you called so. But what have I to do with millions? Jane. You are mistaken. Probably not one in the school either despises or dislikes you. Many. I am sure. How can they pity me after what Mr. Bristol? Brocklehurst is not a god, nor is he even a great and admired man. He is little liked here. He never took steps to make himself liked. Had he treated you as an especial favourite, you would have found enemies, declared or covert, all around you. As it is, the greater number would offer you sympathy if they dared. Teachers and people may look coldly on you for a day or two, but friendly feelings are concealed in their hearts, and they persevere in doing well. These feelings will ere long appear so much the more evidently for their temporary suppression. Besides, Jane paused. Well, Helen, said I, putting my hand into hers. She chafed my fingers gently to warm them, and went on. If all the world hated you, and believed you wicked, while your own conscience approved you, and absolved you from guilt. Now, I know I should think well of myself, but that is not enough. Solitary and hated. Helen, look here. To gain some real affection from you, or Miss Dimple, or any other I truly love, I would willingly submit to have the bone of my arm broken, or to let a bull tusk me, or to stand behind a kicking horse. Or, Jane, you think too much of the love of human beings. You are too impulsive, too vehement. The sovereign hand that created your frame and put life into it has provided you with other resources than your feeble self, or than creatures feeble as you. Besides this earth, and besides the race of men, there is an invisible world in the kingdom of spirits. That world is round us, for it is everywhere, and those spirits watch us, for they are commissioned to guard us. And if we were dying in pain and shame, if scorn smote us on all sides, and hatred crushed us, angels see our tortures, recognize our innocence if innocent we be. As I know you are of this charge which Mr. Brocklehurst has weakly and pompously repeated second hand from my street, read a sincere nature in your ardent eyes and on your clear front reward. Why then, should we ever sick overwhelmed with distress, life is so soon over. I was silent. Helen had calmed me, but in the tranquility she imparted there was an alloy of inexpressible sadness. Felt the impression of voice she spoke, it came, and when having done speaking and coughed a short cough, a big concern for her, besting my head on Helen's shoulder, arms round her waist, she drew me to her. Silence. We had not sat long thus when another person came in. Some heavy clouds swept from the sky by. A rising wind, the moon bare, and her light streaming into a window near, shone full both on us and on the perching figure recognized as Miss Temple. I came on purpose to find you. I want you in my room. We went, following the superintendent's guidance, intricate passages and mounted staircase. Before we reached her apartment, a good fire, and though cheerful, seated in a low armchair on one side of the hearth, another. She called me to her side. Is it all over? She asked, looking down at my face, because I have been wrongly accused, and you, ma'am, and everybody else to be my child. Continue to act as a good girl. You will, said she, passing her arm around me. Tell me, who is the lady who Mr. Mice, weed wife, my uncle, did she not? Then no, ma'am. She was sorry to have to do it, but my uncle, as I have often heard the servants say, well now, Jane, no, or at least I will tell you accused. He is always allowed to speak in his own defence. Been charged with falsehood. Defend yourself to me as well as you can. Say whatever your memories just as true. I resolved my heart that I would be most moderate, miscorrect, and a few minutes in order to arrange coherently what I had to say. Told her all the story of my sad childhood, exhausted by emotion. Language was more subdued than it generally was when it developed that sad theme and mindful of Helen's warnings against the indulgence of resentment, narrative far less of gall and wormwood than ordinary. This restrained and simplified, it sounded more credible, believed me. And the course of the tale I had mentioned Mr. having come to see me. After the fit, for I never forgot that to me frightful episode of the Red Room, in detailing which was sure, in some degree, to break bands in my recollection the spasm of agony which crushed my heart when my sprained my wild supplication for pardon. Dark and haunted chamber. I had finished in silence. She then, "Thud, I know something of Mr. Lloyd, shall write to him. If his reply agrees with your statement, be publicly kicked from every imputation to me." Jane, she kissed me, as still keeping me at her side where I was well contented to stand. Oh, I derived a child's pleasure from the contemplation of her face dress, her one or two ornaments, her white forehead, shining curls, and beaming dark eyes. She proceeded to address Helen Burns. "Are you tonight?" "Helen? Not quite so much, I think, Temple." Got up, took her hand, and examined her pulse to her own seat as she resumed it. I heard her sigh low. She was pensive a few minutes, then rousing herself, she said, "Shuffly, but you two are my visitors tonight." Rang her bell. "Barbara," she said to the servant who answered it, not yet had tea, and a tray was soon brought. How pretty to my eyes did the china cups and bright teapot look, the little round table near the fire, beverage, and the scent of the toast, of which, however, I small portion Miss Temple discerned it too. "Barbara," said she, "bring a little more bread and butter." "Oh, Barbara." When had she returned soon? "Madam, my smice." Harden, be it observed, was the housekeeper, or woman, after Mr. Brocklehurst's own heart, of whalebone and iron. "Oh, very well," returned Miss Temple. "It do, Barbara, I suppose." And as the girl withdrew, she added, smiling, "Fortunately, having invited Helen and me to approach the table of toast, she brought up, unlocked a drawer, a parcel wrapped in paper, disclosed presently to her eyes a good-sized seed cake. "Must give each of you some of this to take with you," said she, "but as there is so little." Just she proceeded to cut slices with a generous hand, nectar and ambrosia, of gratification with which our hostess rewarded us on the delicate fare she liberally supplied. Tea over, and the tray removed, again summoned us to the fire. We sat one on each side of her, and now a conversation followed between her and Helen, of privilege to be admitted to hear her estate in her mien, of refined propriety in her language, which precluded deviation into the ardent, the excited, the eager, which chastened the pleasure of those who looked on her and listened to her by a controlling sense of awe, and such was my feeling now. As to Helen Burns, I was struck with wonder, the refreshing meal, brilliant fire, the presence and kindness of our beloved instructress. Oh, perhaps, more than all these, something in her, one unique mind, her powers within her, they woke, they kindled first in the brightened of her cheeks, in but pale and bloodless as beauty, neither of fine colour nor long eyelash, nor penciled brow, meaning of movement of radiance. Then soul sat on her lips, and language flowed from what source I cannot tell. A 14 a hat large enough vigorous, enough of pure full fervid eloquence, on that, to me, memorable evening, within a very brief span, as much as many live during a protracted existence, conversed of things I had never heard of nations and times past, of countries far away, of secrets of nature discovered or guessed, spoke of books how many they had read, possessed, then they seemed so familiar with French names, and French author's moment to recall the Latin their father had taught her. From a shelf, bade her read and construct a page of Virgil. Helen obeyed, my organ of veneration expanding at every sounding line. Scarcely. Finished to the bell announced bedtime. No delay could be admitted at temple. Embraced us both, saying she drew us to her heart. This year Helen she held a little longer than me, go more. Reluctantly it was Helen her eye followed to the door was for. Her she a second time breathed a sad sigh, wiped a tear from her. Chick. On reaching the bedroom of Miss Scatcherd she was examining drawers, Burns's, and when we entered Helen was greeted with a sharp reprimand, told that tomorrow she should have half a dozen of untidily folded articles been to her shoulder. My things were indeed in shameful disorder, murmured Helen to me voice. I intended to have arranged them next morning a phylactery. Round Helen's large, mild, intelligent and benign-looking forehead. Wore till evening, patient, honours in full, regarding it as a deserved punishment. The moment Miss Scatcherd withdrew after afternoon school, I ran to Helen, tore it off and thrust it into the fire. She was incapable, had been burning in my soul all day, and tears hot and large had continually been scalding my cheek hair. Said resignation gave me an intolerable pain at the heart. To the incidents narrated, Miss Temple, who had written to Mr. Light, received his answer, my account. Miss Temple, having assembled the whole school, had been made into the charges alleged against Jane Eyre, most happy to be able to pronounce her completely clean from every imputation. Teachers then shook hands with me and kissed me, ran through the ranks of my companions. This relieved of a grievous load, from that hour set to work afresh. Difficulty I toiled hard, and my success was proportionate to my efforts. My memory, not naturally tenacious, improved with practice. Exercise sharpened my wits. In a few weeks I was promoted to a class, then 2 months I was allowed to commence French and drawing. First 2 tenses of the verbatim and sketched my first cottage, whose walls, by the by, at revolved in soap, those of the leaning tower of Pisa the same day. That night, on going to bed, prepare in imagination the Barmecide supper of hot roast potatoes, new milk, with which I was wont to amuse my inward cravings, feasted instead on the spectacle of ideal drawings which I saw in the dark, all the work of my own hands, freely penciled houses and trees, picturesque rocks and ruins, carved groups of cattle over in brown roses, of birds picking at ripe cherries, prolific sweets about with ivy sprays. I examined, too, in thought, little French story which Madame Pert had that day shown me, problem solved to my satisfaction. Ere I fell sweetly asleep, a dinner verbs where love is, withal its preparations forgate sheet in its daily luxuries. To be continued.